The way I thought about life and was living my life was just leading me down a path to destruction. I can look back and see it was very much so given destruction. Yep. Hi you guys, welcome back to this channel. I am Darian, and today I wanted to talk to you guys about not getting stuck in your wilderness season. Okay, I know about that wilderness season because I was in it for some time. All right. It's so funny how things happen in my life sometimes, because I still remember to this day, this was years ago, there was this sermon on, and the pastor was talking about the Israelites being in the wilderness, and it just like stands out to me still to this day. I didn't really see that story at that point from a metaphoric like place until I actually went into my own wilderness season. And the funny thing about it is that when I was in my wilderness season, I didn't know what was happening to my life. I just know that life was different, and I didn't ask for it to be this type of different. I didn't know what was going on. But now that I'm in this place of my life where I've evolved and progressed and just grown throughout the seasons, I look back and can clearly think back to that time in my life and connect it back to that sermon. So today I actually want to help you guys. If you are in your wilderness season, about to go in your wilderness season, or maybe you're already just like, you've been in there and you feeling a little stuck, you're not knowing what's going on in your life, hold on, stay put, watch this video, and I hope that it will give you the insight that you need to navigate this season of your life. Okay, so I actually do already have a video talking about the wilderness season on this channel, so if you want, you can go check that out too. But today, I'm just going to start by saying my wilderness season, when I went into it, I had no idea what was happening in my life, and things just started to look differently. Now, you're going to have to see this from a spiritual place. So I went from a time in my life where I wasn't really that close to God. I knew of God. I would go to church and stuff, and just that's where I was in my journey, in my walk. And I was just doing things my way, trying to navigate this life thing my way. I didn't really think to seek God, and not because I didn't want to, but that's just not how I grew up. That's not how I was taught. I thought you just go to church and you just figure out life. You just go get this job, look for the best partner you can look for, and most of the times we're looking from the physical things. We kind of just navigate life from this place of trying to do it ourselves, trying to do what looks best visually to us in life. So I went from that space to now growing in a relationship with God and seeking Him and figuring out what that meant for my life, figuring out what He wants for me, hearing His voice and continuing to seek Him and figure out, where He's leading me and guiding me. And so from that first place that I just mentioned to going to this place, which we'll call the wilderness season, it was like a night and day, because a lot of the ways that I had inside of me, a lot of the thoughts, a lot of the actions even that I was used to, I felt like was fine for my life. This is what I want to do. This is where I'm trying to go. Mindsets, even stuff that's passed down to us. I was okay with this version of myself at that moment because I didn't know that there was different. And then so now when He has me in this wilderness season, and it took me a little bit to even realize what was happening. But when I'm in this wilderness season, it's like He starts to strip me. He starts to strip me from the things that I'm used to. He starts to strip me from doing things this way. And for me, that looked like He will actually tell me, don't do this. Stop talking to these people. Quit this job. And before all of this started to happen, I used to hear people say this type of stuff, and I would be like, yeah, no, I don't know if God really said that, okay? Until He started saying it to me. And I'm just being honest, you guys. I had never really seen people experience life in this type of way. So it was like, I would question, like, is God really like talking to these people like this and telling them to do these things? And so I got in my own situation, then it's like, okay, okay, I see. So it was like in this wilderness place, it's like he literally stripped me from so many things. Now that might sound bad to some people, like you have all these things over here, and then you go into this season, and now God is just stripping you. Now, the reason God was stripping me was because those things were not his will for me. Those things, now that I look back in the way my life was then versus now, I'm so glad that I went through that wilderness season, even though I could not see it in that season, because I would have been going down a path in my life that would have left me in misery, that would have left me so uncomfortable, that would have left me not in the fruitfulness that I experience today. And I'm talking about all around. I'm talking about financially. I'm talking about mentally, emotionally, spiritually. If I would have walked the walk that I thought was good, which we'll call that the Egypt season, okay? And so I'll just reference this back to the book of Exodus with the Israelites and Moses and God moving them from the place of bondage to their place of freedom. Sometimes we feel like life is black and white, like we go from point A to point B, but in between point A to point B, there are some things you have to walk through. There are some things you have to figure out, some kinks you have to straighten out. So that was the part of the wilderness that I had to embrace, those kinks, straightening things out. Those bumps in the roads, having to go over those bumps and navigate that part of my life. But back to what I was saying, looking back, if I would have been left to go down my own path, which I thought was correct, which I thought would have brought me the most success, brought me the most happiness, brought me the most joy, I look back and it's like, oh my goodness, what a mess I would have made of my life. What a mess. So, going through this wilderness process, when you're used to talking to certain people, having certain people around you, and this could be family, this could be friends, this could be coworkers, whatever the case it may be for you, but you're used to having these connections. It could be social connections. You're used to doing things your way, and then you're put in a position in life, because it was like he made it for me where I couldn't just, I mean, I could have just up and left and went back to do it my way or try to figure life how I want to do it. But in this moment, my heart was very submitted to what he had for me in that season. So it was like, I have to do this, and it's hurting because I'm having to leave behind so many things that I'm so used to navigating through and like operating through and figuring out. Now I have to leave all these things and figure it out. So I went through this process of submitting, like, yeah, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do what the way God wants me to do. Again, this, I couldn't really see what he was doing. So it felt like maybe punishment. It felt like, I don't know if I want to do it like this, like, of course, in our mind, we think, oh, we want to do it God's way. We want to do what God wants us to do. We want to go down the path he wants us to do, which was frightening for me, because even like down to this, like me talking to the camera, God telling me to start certain things was just frightening for me. I've always been very quiet. I've always been to myself, minding my business. And it's not that I don't care about other people. Obviously, I care if I'm up here talking to other people, but I would be fine living a life where I didn't have to be in the forefront, talk to anybody. I mean, obviously, talk to people, but like on a scale like this, I guess, or I would be fine just living, to me, I guess, like an everyday normal life. But having to even surrender and submit to his plan in that area was so different for me. It really made me uncomfortable and pushed me out of my shell, pushed me out of my comfort zone. And so me actually thinking that I was surrendering, because, okay, let's say God tells you to do 1, 2, 3. So you do 1, you do 3 because, it doesn't seem so bad. But let's just say you hesitate on 2. So if you hesitate on doing 2, God looks at it as you haven't finished what I told you to do. I gave you 3 assignments. You did 2 of them. There's still 1 left on the table. So now you expect me to take you to the next place when you have not finished 2. Okay, so it wasn't mattering that you were fearful or you looked at it a certain way or you just maybe didn't think this was for you, or you get where I'm going. So in that season, I kind of was like in a place of teeter tattering. Is that the right word? Teeter tatter. I was in that place of surrender, resistance, but it didn't. In my mind, I wasn't thinking it was resistance because it just looked like fear. It just looked like procrastination. It just looked like I'm gonna get to it, but right now I'm gonna work on this. Okay, misdirected productivity. Which is a real thing, y'all. You start to work on something else that, yes, it may be important, but that's not what you're supposed to be doing right now. It starts to look like those things. Now, it doesn't seem so bad, does it? No. But if it's holding you back from making progress because you're not fully surrendering in the ways that you're supposed to fully surrender to see the progress in your life, to see the blessings in your life, to see the overflow in your life, then it becomes a problem. Believe it or not, that can actually start to lead to delays in your life. And let me tell you why. Because I feel like this is coming up. Delayed obedience is still disobedience. I can't even remember where I heard that from. I feel like I heard that a lot as a child growing up. And I wasn't even a bad child, but that's just something I just remember hearing. Like, delayed obedience is still disobedience. So if you are not doing the things that he is asking you to do in this new season, you're complaining, you're making all kinds of excuses, you are doing little bits and pieces, you are trying to fight it, because baby, I was fighting that wilderness season. Like it was so hard for me because the stripping hurts. To go from one place and to have so much taken out of you, that pruning, you may have heard it as a pruning season also. It hurts to go from having certain people in your life and then now feeling like I don't have the people to talk to that I used to talk to. Like literally, God shut that season down, okay? He shut that season down, all right? I felt invisible, right? But interestingly enough, in that season, it allowed me to see who really cared about me and who didn't. So that was an exposure of the people in my life. And in that season, I remember so vividly, he had me reading his word. He had me in my Bible, okay? I was eating up that word, okay? I was reading and reading and reading and receiving so much revelation. And to be honest, prior to that season, I would probably read, I would try to do the verse of the day, okay? I'm just being real. To some people, that might be good. Some people may be like, hey, I'm not even getting a verse today in, okay? I'm not here to judge you. But in my heart, that's what I felt like was good for me. That was working for me, I thought. But as I got in that wilderness season, God was like, get up every day and get in my word. And so that grew me a lot spiritually. It grew me a lot, just my mindset, like the things that I was used to. I was changing so much, and for the better, because in the moment it may seem like, oh, I gotta do this, or he's asking me to do this, and in the moment it may seem like that, but now I'm able to see how beneficial it was for me in that season. So I started to notice that there was a cleansing in my soul. There was a cleansing in me spiritually. Like the things that I was so weighed down with, the things that just wasn't really my true nature, but it was just being in the world, being in this world, you pick up so many different mindsets and habits and behaviors and thoughts, and you're taught things this way and that way. It was just so much was being stripped from me, and that is very uncomfortable. Even though it's a good thing, it is painful. And so again, that resistance was causing me to cause myself to be in that season longer than I needed to be. So let's tie this into the actual story of the Israelites. I feel like a lot of people have probably heard of the story of the Israelites in the wilderness and how I think the trip was supposed to be a few days and it turned into 40 years. Imagine you are supposed to be going on a trip to maybe like a place that's an hour away, and that trip, because of you forgot to pack correctly, you forgot to fill the car up with gas, you filled the car up with gas, now you got to stop to use the bathroom because you didn't use the bathroom. Now you got to stop because you could have packed food and had it available for you on this trip. Now you got to stop at, like, let's say 3 different fast food restaurants. Do you see how all these distractions and how all these things being added into a season can cause a delay? So now the trip that you could have been prepared for to just go on for an hour turn into, let's say, 24-hour trip, an 18-hour trip. And those are more physical things, but what was causing the Israelites to be delayed was the grunting, the complaining, the not wanting to do what God wanted them to do. Just, you know, we gotta eat this, we gotta do this. God, I gotta do this. This what you want me to do? This not what I want to do. I mean, we can be real about life. You're not going to want to do everything God tells you to do. We as just human beings, can be rebellious. We can be disobedient. We're selfish. We want to do what we want to do. But, it was the grunting. It was the complaining. It was the disobedience, delaying doing what you're supposed to do. It was the idolatry, the distractions. You just saw this miracle happen, and now you decide that you are going to worship something else, the golden calf. And in our everyday lives, it doesn't look like a golden calf. It looks like, okay, I'm going to go get in this relationship. Or, okay, I'm going to go do this. Or, okay, I'm going to hang out with these friends because this is the life I want. Or this is the lifestyle I want. It could look like, okay, I'm going to go pursue this job because it's paying $500,000 and it looks good to me. But meanwhile, it's paying $500,000 when you don't have time for anything else. And if you would have just maybe settled for the $50,000 salary and allowed God to process you and lead you and guide you, in 5 years, you could have been making $500,000 going down this path. But the golden calf of the $500,000 or the golden calf of wanting to be married sooner at this age. So you just go straight into this relationship that leads to destruction. Or I feel like there's so many examples, y'all. It's like life has so many different avenues that people take and go down. And this is no judgment, okay? This is no judgment to anybody. But this is different ways that we can allow the golden calf to enter our lives. So being in that season of the wilderness, you can actually cause yourself to be stuck. You can actually cause yourself to go through delay and so many things that you don't have to experience. Now, here's some things that I want to mention because this is something that I realized looking back on my seasons of the wilderness. So in my seasons of the wilderness, it didn't matter that I was delaying it in my own way. It didn't matter because I still had to go through it. I still had to get through the fullness of that season to get to the place to where I'm at now, to get to my elevated place, to get to my better self, to get to the place that God viewed for me. Again, I didn't see this place as, I didn't even know this place was possible, to be honest. I just knew what I knew. I just knew that this was the life I was used to living, and that wilderness season looked like not that. Like even in the bondage, because I was in bondage prior to the wilderness season. I just didn't know I was in bondage because that's what I knew life to be. But once I got in the wilderness season and got out of it, I got to see like I really was in bondage. Like my mindsets and the way I thought about life and was living my life was just leading me down a path to destruction. I can look back and see it was very much so given destruction. Yep. And the things that I wanted back then would have required so much toil out of me to get those things. so much toil than to just do them how I'm doing it now. I get to live a soft life. And I don't mean it from a place of like, oh, just getting like massages and facials and this or that, but choosing this path, choosing to go through the wilderness and get to this place, my blessings just come easier. I don't have to toil for things. I don't have to do things because I feel like it's gonna get me this place. They just come to me by doing it in this way. Now, I'm in no way saying that going through the wilderness and going into the new seasons and the new ways of life, that your life is going to be perfect and you're not going to go through things ever. That's not what I'm saying, okay? I don't want to paint this picture of perfection because life is never perfect. But I do believe that the decisions you choose in life can lead you to better versions of life, okay? So back to the original point that I was trying to get to was that no matter how much delay was going in the season, it wasn't just like, okay, I was in the wilderness season and I was distracted by trying to make new friends or allowing other people in my life and now being distracted by this and that and the third. I still had to finish out the fullness of that wilderness season. So it wasn't like, okay, let's say your wilderness season is like a year and 6 months you're doing good and you're on track, and then the other 6 months you're distracted and doing all these things and just not doing what you was supposed to be doing, okay? You was not trying to be bothered up with no wilderness season, okay? And then when I say these things, it doesn't necessarily mean you're doing bad things, but it's just not what God told you to do. It's not what you're supposed to be doing. But maybe you convince yourself that it is. It's still good. It's not necessarily terrible things going on. So let's say again, the year was supposed to be the full wilderness season. I still have that other 6 months that I have to do. And depending on how much distraction you allow in your life, you may actually increase the time of the wilderness because now you've gotten even more, stuff that you have to be worked out of and broken out of. But my point was that now once I have let a year pass, even though 6 months of it was doing what I needed to do in the wilderness and the other was distracted, now I have a year and a half in that wilderness because I still have to do the other part of it. And again, if you just was wilding, then you probably are going to have maybe 2 to 3 more years in the wilderness. It just depends on everyone's life, okay? And let's just be real. As people do different things, but that's the blessing of life, is that it's a journey and you figure it out. And this is no judgment again, okay? This is no judgment. So don't feel bad if you do feel like, oh, maybe you didn't do your wilderness season right, or God's grace is sufficient, okay? All right. But allowing yourself to be distracted in the wilderness season, fighting it, resisting it, halfway doing it, still does not take away the time that you're going to have to spend in that wilderness season if you want to see it to completion, if you want to see it to fruition. Now, it is true that you can end up going back when it is time for your wilderness season and going back to the place of Egypt, the place of bondage. That is very much so possible. And again, life happens in different ways, so it's no judgment. It's possible that you can cause delays, and then it's possible that you can just get through it and just get what you need from it and go into that next place. But if you do go back, remember the children of Israel were in bondage. This was one of the I think main things that stood out from that sermon that I remember, is that when they were in Egypt, they had such bad treatment. And this is real, this is something in real life that we face and we don't even realize. They were having such bad treatment and such bondage. And it may not look like bad treatment from others being in Egypt. It could be that maybe you're just battling certain things in your life because you're in this bondage. So you keep repeating certain cycles, or you keep repeating certain things in your life. This could be poverty. It could be things in your mind that you're battling with. It could be relational cycles. Okay, so I'm not trying to like limit anybody. It could be so many different things. It could be bloodline things that you just keep facing and battling with in Egypt. But because you only know this place, this is the only thing that you've been exposed to, you don't realize the bondage that's taking place. You don't realize the blessings that are forfeited because of maybe certain cycles that you're participating in or that you grew up seeing and now you're doing these things. You don't realize the bondage of just not feeling your best, not feeling good because of the certain cycles. You don't realize, like, I can go so deep, the different ways of bondage, okay? So I don't want to go try to, like, nitpick different ways, but if this is bearing witness with your spirit, you'll just know what it is for you. And so once you go to that wilderness, because in Egypt, you can have all the things you want. You know, you're doing it life your way. You can take this, have that, do this, go there. Once you get into that middle space of your life, which we will again say is the wilderness, God is like, okay, so I'm going to take this from you, but you don't know that once you get past the wilderness, he's going to give you something better. He's going to give you something greater. So then he's like, okay, I'm going to take this. I'm going to take this. These people have to leave your life. This, I want you to give up this job because I have another way that I want you to be financially stable and thrive and overflow. But all you can see is that in Egypt, this is what sustained me. This is what paid my bills. This is what, you know, this is what did it for me. In the wilderness, when all of that is stripped, it just looks like this what I gotta eat, Lord. This the life I gotta live. And so let's say that in the wilderness, because we're tying this back to the children of Israel, they was having fish and all this other stuff in Egypt. Even though they was in bondage, they felt like they was eating good, okay? They couldn't actually really conceptualize the fullness of the bondage that they were in because they were distracted by the good things. But once they got to the wilderness and they're being fed manna, what is this bread? I was having a different type of bread over here, so now I have to eat this bread. This is what my life has become. And it's interesting because I don't know if I really complained like that in my season of wilderness, but I definitely was thinking like, okay, well, I guess this is what my life is going to be like forever now. Like I just thought that okay, God had me to put all these things down. I didn't know that there was better coming. I mean, I guess you kind of hope and pray. But I kind of just thought, okay, I'm just going to be in a season of isolation, just reading my Bible and being delivered and healed and all this stuff forever. That is what I guess mentally just told myself. But obviously life goes on. God puts you in certain seasons for a reason. So I started to come out of that and evolve and grow and find new things that were for me and pick up the new things that were for me, and my life started to form in a better way. So y'all follow me? But for me to get to that place, I like to say the palace place or that greater place, I had to get through the wilderness, the middle place. But you guys, so going back, I feel like once you leave Egypt and you go to the wilderness, because the stripping, the pruning feels a little harsh. It feels a little rough. Imagine always just giving yourself everything you want, every desire you want, and then finally having to have discipline and restraint. That's going to be pretty hard. That's going to require a lot of strength. That's not easy to go from a place of having everything you want literally delivered to your hands and now having to not live like that. So if you do end up going back to Egypt and not allow yourself to go through the completion of your wilderness, or even allowing yourself to get stuck in the wilderness, it can be easy to lose sight of where you are going. And again, I didn't even know fully where I was going. I just I don't really know if I was fully connected to my wilderness season until after I was able to look back. Kind of like almost like I felt like I was dissociating. Like I just accepted that this might just be my new life forever, okay? But now being out of it, I can look back and be like, oh, okay, I see what was being done. I see how it was being processed. So if you go back to Egypt, then all you do is go back to that bondage. That's all you know. And you forfeit the greater blessing. And I'm not saying, again, no condemnation. If you go back to Egypt, I'm not saying that you could never have blessings in your life or be blessed, but nobody wants to be in bondage. Nobody wants to, like, once you know a better way, once you know a better life, you leave that place and go to that new place. It's almost like, let's say you're used to living off of $5. Obviously, we know that's not realistic in the real world. Life definitely costs more than $5 a month. But let's just say, for example purposes, you're used to living off of $5. And then let's say God takes you through a season where he gives you $4, but in that season he moved you to a place, like let's say in the $5 that you were making, your living expenses cost $4. Now let's say you go into a wilderness season and God gives you a salary of $4, but your living expenses are $2 or $1. So it's even though it seems like you got less, it's still very much so affordable. You have left over, like you have what you need, but everything is covered. Everything is taken care of. You have more room in this wilderness season than you did prior, but because it looks like a little less, because you were stripped of something, it just doesn't feel like it. It just seems like now I have less in this new place. But let's say after you get through that period of wilderness, again, we'll use a year. Now he's going to give you $100 every month to live off of. And again, maybe your living expenses are now only $6. So you have overflow. So let's say you got tired in that middle place. Like you was like, this is too much. Like I lost my dollar and I want my $5. Even though back then when you had the $5, it didn't matter because you only had $1 left to spend because your living expenses were $4. When you were in Egypt and you had to eat the manna, you had to eat the bread that he was providing for that season, okay? Season, not lifetime. But it just felt like a lifestyle, okay? But you had to eat that. For that time period, it just felt like, even though you still had leftover, you still had more room, more leeway, it felt harder. It felt harsher. It felt like something was taken away. Even though it was taken away, it was good for you. It allowed you to see certain things. It allowed you to grow and come out of that. If you go back to Egypt, yeah, you'll have your $5 again, but that $5, again, it won't matter. But if you just hold on a little while longer, stop complaining. Look at the blessing in the wilderness. Get the lessons that you need, because that wilderness season is meant to teach you so much more than you know. I look back and I learned so many things that I would not be the woman that I am today if I would have not gone through that season, if I would have overlooked the things that were being taught to me in that season and did not go through the processes. Even the processes that I went through because of just disobedience, because of procrastination, not wanting to listen. I still learned so many lessons from that season. And now, once you get to that season, you get to live in the overflow of getting through that season, because you're a new person now. You've been processed. You've been changed. You've been changed to see things from a more fruitful perspective. Now, instead of just toiling and doing something because it looks good financially for you in Egypt, now you get to prosper in doing what you're meant to do, doing what you're called to do. All you have to do is show up, and opportunities and things are just handed to you. And it's handed to you because you sacrificed in that wilderness season. So it's not toil for it. It's just, you just sacrifice. You did what you're supposed to do, and the doors open. Again, it doesn't mean that as soon as you come out, things are just gonna just look perfect and overflow. There's a process to life, but you start to see like, wow, if I would have never went this way, I would have never gotten to this place, seeing these things, and you get it. So I want to wrap up this video, you guys. I just want to remind you to please do not get stuck in your wilderness season. Being stuck in the wilderness season, it's not fun. Why would you want to go through something that is not fun for even longer when you can just get through it and get to that better place? So y'all, don't get stuck in the wilderness season. Be obedient. Do what you need to do. If this video is for you, you'll just know it. You're in this season, or maybe you're like how I saw that sermon before I went into my season, even though I didn't know I was in it at first. Hopefully this video will come back to you. So I thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.